was willing to climb out on a limb to catch a glimpse of the master teacher, Jesus. This morning, what are you willing to do to have an intimate experience of the divine? What risks are you willing to take to discover your own divine nature? While I was in Florida, one of the classes that I taught was Jesus' teachings. And so we spent a whole week looking at the life of Jesus, looking at parables, statements of truth. And at the end, all of us in the group came to the conclusion that if there was one word to summarize Jesus' teachings, it would be love. Throughout the New Testament, he talked about the importance of loving God, loving each other, and loving ourselves. And as we were talking, I had an aha moment. That if his teachings could be described in 2 words, the 2 words that I would choose would be becoming real. Becoming real. This morning, I want to ask you to climb out on a spiritual limb so that you can discover who you really are, so that you can become real. Now, when I think about becoming real, I think about one of my favorite children's parables, the story of the Velveteen Rabbit. Now, last year at Easter, I shared that story with you, and I received a special gift afterwards that I will share with you. For those of you who haven't had children in a long time or don't remember when you were a child, for me that was pretty distant. The story of the Velveteen Rabbit is about a simple stuffed animal who's placed in a children's nursery. And he's surrounded by some pretty shiny, fancy toys that do all kinds of cool things that he doesn't do. And you better believe they are sure to explain to him how inferior he is. Now, I know there's no one in your life that points out your faults, is there? And so after a while, he becomes discouraged. And he has a lot of doubt. And he believes he's probably not good enough. None of us suffer from that in here either, I know, right? Lucky for him, he's adopted by the skin horse, who is the oldest toy in the nursery. And it is the skin horse who tells him what it means to become real. And to kind of paraphrase the skin horse, to become real is to let go of others' good opinion of you. To let go of your own self-criticism, your own self-judgment, and to discover your true self, to discover who you really are. After I talked about that at Easter, Pat Deal presented me with a book called The Velveteen Principles, a guide to becoming real. And in it, Tony Rayton D'Antonio goes on further to describe real. She describes real as living in the moment with the deepest respect for yourself and for others. It is a way of thinking that allows us to express ourselves and experience life, including its stress, conflicts, sorrows, and losses, with grace, kindness, and integrity. I believe that Jesus would agree. He often said to us, "You are the light of the world. You're the salt of the earth. You're the fruit on the vine." And I believe that he was always trying to teach us who we really were. I started this morning with the story of Zacchaeus, because Zacchaeus was in fact a wee little man, probably, I don't know. There's no history to back that up, don't Google it. It's what I was taught when I was in kindergarten in Bible school, so it must absolutely be true.
That's right.
What we do know is that Zacchaeus was a tax collector. And so here's Jesus bringing the IRS to dinner, right? And that was just the kind of teacher that Jesus was. He hung out with tax collectors. He hung out with beggars. He hung out with all the disreputables. Even in his parables teach us about the Good Samaritan, a despised group of people. He also talks about a wild young man that goes out and sows his oats, and he's welcomed back home again anyway. He even drinks at a well, takes a drink at a well from a woman who's very disreputable. She has had multiple husbands, and the one she's living with is not her own. A divorcee. You see, Jesus was able to see beyond. He saw beyond circumstances. He saw beyond social norms, cultural norms. He saw beyond self-judgment, recrimination, to the truth of who we really are. He knew that these people had within them the divine energy of the universe, just as we have that energy within us. But oh, deep respect, that's a pretty tall order. So how do we get there? D'Antonio suggests that the very first principle in becoming real is to know that real is possible. See, despite the fact that I drove through sleet and snow yesterday, I am clinging to the possibility that spring really is going to come. And you know, if I take a minute and I look around, I see spring. I see spring everywhere. Look at the buds on the trees. Last year someone had given me a bag of bulbs, and it was just before we purchased our house. I was at an ILM picnic, and I went home with a bunch of Kathy's bulbs. And I took those bulbs and I planted them deep in the earth. Now they were ugly, and they were covered in mud, and they were wrinkly. They didn't look anything like crocuses. Not that I'm really sure what a crocus looks like, but they didn't look like one. But I planted it deep within the earth because I held on to the possibility that spring would come and that those bulbs would turn into beautiful flowers, flowers that I could love and appreciate. Each one of you this morning is just like that bulb. You hold within you the possibility of something beautiful, the possibility of something powerful, the possibility of the real you. In our story, The Velveteen Rabbit, as soon as the rabbit discovers that real is within him, he begins to change. The same is true of us. Our transformation begins when we are able to imagine living as real, when we are able to realize, to have faith in the possibility that everything we are, everything we came here to be, is already right within us and can never, ever be separated from us, like the wave cannot be separated from the ocean. That's us. The second principle of becoming real, once we understand what is possible, is to know that real is a process. Now, I don't believe in processes. I want to get there. I want to do it. I'm a get her done kind of girl. Let's just do it. But the truth is, I've yet to figure out how to be divine 100% of the time. I've yet to figure out how to live in the true nature of gentleness, kindness, patience, all of the time, in all circumstances. What about you? Anybody achieve that yet? Okay, because I was going to trade positions with you this morning. It's a process that evolves over time. We would do well to remember the skin horse's advice to the rabbit. You know, the rabbit was ready to be real too. And he wanted to know, is it going to happen all at once? Is it going to hurt? Like, how does it happen that we become real? And the skin horse says, it doesn't happen all at once, said the skin horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or have to be carefully kept. Becoming real doesn't happen to those people who are quitters, who give up at the first sign of failure. Becoming real happens every time you're at the end of the rope and you tie a knot in it. Becoming real doesn't happen to those people who refuse to take down the wall that separates them from God, from us, from themselves. And becoming real doesn't happen to those people who have a plan and will not relent to changing it. You know who you are. Will not surrender the plan to a greater plan, to the divine plan. No, becoming real takes courage. You have to have the courage to imagine that you can step into your divinity, that you can live from a place of your true nature. Being real takes courage to allow Source to rub off our rough edges through grit. The grit of life experiences, the grit of pain, the grit of struggle, the grit of challenge. You see, all of that rub makes us smooth, makes us brighter, shines us. And we have to have the courage to surrender our agenda, to surrender who we think we are, to surrender the way we think things should go, to let go of that and to have the courage to allow our God positioning system to guide us to becoming more of who we are. Becoming more. So it's not for the faint of heart. You see, you have to be willing to climb out on that limb like Zacchaeus. You have to be willing to climb out on that limb and to let go of who you think you're not. You have to climb out on that limb and let go of who others think you are. You have to climb out on that spiritual limb so you can have a better view of the truly, incredibly divine person that you are and always have been, despite your imperfections. In fact, because of your imperfections. As soon as the Velveteen Rabbit saw value in becoming real and accepted that real was already within him, he began his journey to becoming the real bunny. You too have that same opportunity. Is becoming real of value to you? Are you willing to look inside and see the real you? The you that is love, the you that is peace, the you that is joy, that is curiosity, that is imagination. If you're ready to become real, I invite you to climb out on the limb with me, and we can become real together. Infinite love and gratitude to each of you.